Evie is a nationally regarded speaker and has touched the lives of countless women through her engagement and telling of her story. She also sits on the board of several area outreach and charitable organizations. Her day job is as a lieutenant with the Cleveland, Tennessee Police Department, where she's a community outreach leader. Her amazing book is called Revolving Choices, Playing Roulette With Life, which should be a movie, honestly. Mark's listening. Please help me welcome Evie West.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And I am so proud. I've been a pro-life speaker for 12 years, but I am very proud of being a police officer locally in Cleveland, Tennessee. So if you look around here, you'll see police officers from Chattanooga Police Department standing around here guarding your safety. It would honor me so much if you would say thank you for that today. So I want to thank Chattanooga for being here and protecting us, which is silly that we have to do that, but I'm really grateful for that. I am originally from Southern California. I am a proud Tennessean now, thank the Lord, because I've been here longer in Tennessee than I was in California. But my dad is from Mexico and my mom is from Virginia and met in Cleveland, Tennessee in 1965. They got married and moved to Mexico to be missionaries and ultimately ended up in Southern California where I was born and I have an older sister. So the first 12 years of my life, I knew about Jesus Christ. I followed his commandments. I wanted to be a missionary. I felt a call of God on my life from a young age. But when I turned 12, I ran into a cultural identity issue. Being Mexican American, but looking white was really difficult in Southern California in those times in 1990. But that was also the height of the gang epidemic in Southern California. And so I was confronted with wanting friends and wanting to be popular, wanting to be accepted. But instead, I was met being bullied, I was assaulted. I went through hell for like 6 months. And so instead of making the decision to do the right thing, I decided to get initiated into a gang. And from 12 years old to 19 years old, I was very involved in criminal activity, criminal enterprise. And I made a lot of choices that affected my life and continue to affect my life today. Thank God for mercy and grace, right? Because none of us are perfect. But being in a gang and choosing that lifestyle and associating with those friends and claiming allegiance with those kind of people really catapulted me into making some pretty rough decisions, experimenting with drugs and alcohol, but also sex. And so at 16 years old, I was pregnant, had to go in and tell my parents that, but I didn't even have a sorrow for that. I didn't have any kind of, I didn't feel bad about that. I just felt like, I was almost proud because it seemed like everyone else around me was pregnant at the same age. And so I went through my pregnancy in high school and birthed my son in February of 1994, came home with him and found out really quick, in fact 7 days after I had my child, that the responsibility of motherhood is not something I wanted to assume at that age. And so I took my son and I put him with a babysitter and I went back to school and I went back to my life of gangbanging and went back to partying and smoking weed and getting high and getting drunk and partying with my friends. And I was spiraling out of control. Thankfully, I had parents and grandparents that prayed for me, that contended for me, that stood on the word of God for me. And so it finally came to a head in December of 1995 when my mom was sitting on the couch. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning and I came in and she handed me a letter. And the letter said, "The umbilical cord is now cut." I said, "Mom, what does that mean?" She said, "No longer am I enabling you to continue to live this lifestyle. You're leaving." And so I waited and kind of behaved a little bit for a few weeks until I came home and saw 2 bags packed by the front door. And so I went out and called another gang member and asked them to come pick me up because my mom was kicking me and my 2-year-old son out on the street, but he never showed up. So my dad takes my bags and puts them in the car and drives up to the Los Angeles airport where the gate agent called all the passengers from Los Angeles to Atlanta, Georgia to get on the plane. Now see, my parents were sending me to Cleveland, Tennessee, and I was furious about it. So I grabbed my 2-year-old son, I got on the plane, I didn't even turn around to say goodbye. And the plane went from Los Angeles to Atlanta, Georgia, where my mom had arranged someone from Lee College to pick me up. And I looked like a gang member, and I walked like one, I talked like one, and I acted like one. I was so foreign to Cleveland, Tennessee, right? But I was met with so much love and acceptance. You know why? Because God is for me, just like he's for you. And so I walked on that campus of Lee College. I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to study. I had no ambition to be anything. And so when the registrar said, what do you want to be? I'm like, I don't want to be here. That's where I don't want to be here. But in reality, they said, we're going to put you in general ed courses. Going into classes with my 2-year-old son, looking like a gang member, acting like one, not being cordial or warm with anyone that accepted me. And so I went through these classes, and my teachers loved me and had patience with me and grace for me. And then because it's a Christian university, I had to go to chapel, which I hated. I didn't want to hear about God. I didn't want to hear about scripture, but I had to go on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. And it took about 6 weeks for the Lord to chip off that hardness in my heart. And there was a man up there speaking about how God pursues us. And me. Why would he pursue me? I'm a big ball of mess, disgusting. If I began to tell you the stories of things that I was involved in and the things that I did to people, you would be really sad, ashamed. So I listened to this man saying, why would God pursue me? But he does. And so you know what? It took an act of surrender for me to walk up and put my hands up and say, if you can take this big ball of mess, you can have me. That's all it took. And God began to chip off the things in my life and my heart and the way that I did my hair and makeup and dressed and talked and walked, and began to create and form the person that he had before that I chose not to be. And so, things were looking good for the first time in 7 years. My parents were calling me going, Evie, we are so proud of you. You're making great choices. You're doing the right thing. You're taking care of your son. You're living by yourself. You're going to school every day. You're doing your homework. And I felt really good about myself. And then one Sunday I wake up in February of 1996 and I vomit. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Because I don't ever vomit. And I sucked my stomach in and felt on the left side of my stomach a ball about the size of my fist. And I knew right away, I'm pregnant. Now mind you, I had been walking with the Lord now for a few weeks. I knew what he expected me to do. I knew abortion was wrong, but I was desperate. And I was hopeless, and I'm like, this is not going to set me back. I have gone way too far to go back to where I came from. So I grabbed a phone book, and I looked under A for abortion. Because in California, there's abortion clinics everywhere, right? No one told me I was in the Bible Belt. Not only was I in the Bible Belt, I was in the buckle of the Bible Belt. Cleveland, Tennessee is the buckle. So I looked under A for abortion. I'm like, yes, there's one abortion clinic here in Cleveland. It's called New Hope Pregnancy Crisis Center. So I'm going to go to this place, and I'm going to have this abortion. What the abortion is, I don't know. Is it a surgery? Is it a drink? Is it a pill? I don't know what I'm going to experience. So I called and I told them I need their services, and I filled out the application. They gave me some paperwork. I filled all that stuff out. I went the next morning. And so as they took me back to the bathroom to do a urine test, I saw a Bible on a chair. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I went to the bathroom. I went into a small counseling room where a counselor came in and talked to me. And I asked her, I said, is this a Christian place? And she said, we're a pregnancy resource center for women in crisis pregnancies. And I'm like, why are you in the phone book under abortion? She's like, no, we do post-abortion counseling. We help women who have made these choices. And so I was so angry, and I wanted to get out of there so bad. And I told the lady, I said, here's the deal. Okay, I'm desperate, and you're not in my position. You're not in my shoes. I'm 2,000 miles away from home. I'm still a teenager. I have a 2-year-old son. I'm a Lee student. I have no money, no job, and no car. You don't understand. I can't have this baby. I am literally taking my 2-year-old to school with me every day. Every single day he's in class with me. I cannot do this with the baby. And so she said, well, let's talk about this. And I was like, I don't want to talk to you. Talk about abortion-minded. I was desperate. And she said, Evie, she said, will you watch this video before you leave? And I will spare the details of a gruesome abortion. But seeing a child in a mother's womb, ingesting saline and convulsing and dying in front of me wrecked me. And a partial birth abortion, where a mother birthed out a dead baby and discarded with the trash. And I left that place more helpless and hopeless than when I walked in, because abortion was going to be a solution to my problem. But no longer was it. I had to have this baby. So what was I going to do? The Pregnancy Resource Center walked alongside me. They supported me. They loved me through it. They gave me maternity clothes. I mean, I had to hide my pregnancy until school got out into the summer. I didn't tell a soul. And for the sake of time, I'm going to spare the details, but because of divine connection, I was at a church in another state and met an African-American lady who spoke words of life into me and prayed over me. And she walked alongside me throughout this pregnancy when I told no one. She told me about TennCare and food stamps, and she talked to me even about the topic of adoption. And I said, how can I carry this baby for 9 months and then give him to somebody else? Like, I can't do that. She said, Evie, here's a name and a number of a couple in Ohio that is looking to adopt a child. If you want to research this and talk to them, call them. And so I did. And over the course of the next few weeks, even without my parents knowing, this couple came down from Ohio and spent time with me, and I finally made the decision that I was going to place my son for adoption. So about 4 weeks before I was to give birth, I wrote my parents a letter, and I asked for forgiveness, and I said, this is what happened. I got pregnant in California. I'm here in Tennessee. I wanted to do the right thing. I didn't want to disappoint you or make you to be ashamed of me. So I was going to abort my child, but I have chosen adoption. My mom and dad loved me through it. They were with me. They supported me. They sent my sister to Tennessee to be with me during that time because my parents weren't able to be with me during that time. And told my sister, these are the parents I've chosen. I went to the hospital on July 30th of 1996, and I birthed a healthy, dark-skinned, black-headed little baby boy. And I will tell you guys that it was probably one of the most difficult decisions I've ever had to make in my life. I held my son over the course of 10 hours, and I prayed over him, and I cried over him, and I spoke to him, and what my heart wanted was for him to never feel abandoned or unloved. But I did this as a sacrifice of love because it was too difficult for me to have to go through life with him and not give him the things that a child needs at that point in his life. And so the parents were going to come at 5:30. At 5 p.m., I looked at the clock on the hospital wall, and I felt like I could not breathe. And so I asked the Holy Spirit to be with me. And within 5 minutes, I felt as if someone was standing over me, pouring a pitcher of warm water that covered every part of my body, even my fingertips that were in such pain. And at 5:30, they rolled me out, and I put my son in the car seat, and I watched as they drove off. And I got home, and I had a planner that said it's a boy, and I had, my body was telling me that I just had a baby, but I had no child. And I came to a crossroads in my life where I had to make a decision if I was going to allow this trauma that I created myself to hold me back from the destiny that God has for me to walk forward and to complete his assignment that he has me on this earth, just like he does unborn children. All of you. Or am I going to stand here and say, woe is me. I'm so sad. I can't move on. I can't do this. And I could not afford that. You know why? Because there are people that need to hear the truth. That your life matters, that you're purposed, that you're the apple of his eye, that you are created for purpose, that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And so I graduated from college, was going to be a missionary in Latin America, but then God called me to be a police officer, and I'm like, how am I going to be a missionary and a police officer? But I found out really quickly that people don't call the police because they want you to look at their tomatoes in their garden. There's crisis, right? And so what better way for all of us to be in a place of crisis than to speak life into people and to tell them that they are wanted and loved and purpose, and there is a matter, there is an assignment for their existence. And so that is where I have been. So going through my life, I prayed for my son. I cried over my son. Now I'm going to tell you, it was not an easy path for me. It was not an easy path. But I remained steadfast in the fact that I did what I knew I was supposed to do. Now I want to be very careful because I know that there are women in this room and outside here that are listening that have chosen abortion. Here's the good news about this. Jesus changes everything. And he does not want you to be walking around in shame or condemnation because he forgives and he loves. And he thrusts us forward to say, I've forgiven you, now walk in this way and make your mess my message of hope, love, restoration, and redemption for people. He is King. So in 2017, my son, who I placed for adoption, reached out to me on Facebook and said, I want to meet you. He graduated from high school with a 35 on his ACT, got a full ride to Miami University in Ohio, and is now working for the Kroger Corporation. And God has restored that relationship. God has brought us back, and God has allowed me to have contact with him, which I'm so grateful for. So I say this as a matter of testimony because my intention was to take care of the problem, to get rid of the problem. And there are a lot of women who don't hear the truth, that don't know the truth. There's a lot of women who are in these predicaments that say, you don't understand, I can't have this baby. So it is our place to judge them. Or is it our place to walk next to them and walk beside them and say, we support you, we love you, and we are going to love you through this. We're going to speak truth. And that is why you are here today, because you stand for life. So for the last 12 years, I've been a pro-life speaker. I go across the nation helping pregnancy centers raise money so that when they can keep their doors open for women that come in like me. And I tell them all the time, I don't care if you remember my name. I don't care if you remember what I look like. What I want you to remember is my story, because it is similar to a lot of women who come in and say, you're not walking in my shoes. I can't afford this baby. I can't emotionally support this baby. I can't physically support this baby. But there's someone that can. There's someone that can, and there is purpose for the life of this child. So I want to honor all of you for being out here on a day that's 60 degrees outside and a Saturday. And I want to honor you for your stance for life. And I want to honor you, and I want to challenge you to speak truth into everyone you come in contact with. I don't care if it is in this park, on a walk, in the grocery store, in your church, in your home. It is important for us to let people know that they are planned by God, that they are wanted by God, that they are loved by God. So, me alegro mucho ver las familias aquí, hispanas, que están aquí apoyando a nosotros, y muchas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Always remember that life is always the best choice.